that is tempting. Whew. I think I got it fixed now. What up, well, it's your boy LeeZy back with another one. Today we'll be diving into a deeply personal and important topic, HIV awareness. Hadia, I don't want to pronounce her name wrong. Hadia, I think that's Hadia Broadbent. She just passed. She was 39 years old. She just passed. She became a first advocate of those living with the disease at a time when medication wasn't widely available. And back in the day, if you caught HIV or AIDS, it was a straight death sentence. So, and her crazy is her story is crazy as is. She was adopted by this family in Las Vegas as a baby, and she became real sick when she turned 3. And by the age of 5, they didn't know it. By the age of 5, she had full blown AIDS. So her mom ended up starting to advocate for HIV awareness and stuff, and she also joined when she was her age and stuff. She started giving seminars and trying to help the community with education awareness and everything like that. When hate to say it, R.I.P. baby, but she ended up passing away. I think this month at the age of 39. So R.I.P. Hadia Broadbent. And it was crazy. I was scrolling through TikTok and I ran across this lady named this page called ladybyrdofficial, and she started this 20-part story called "How Did He Give Me HIV?" And come to find out, her husband was the one who gave her HIV. That's crazy. It's a powerful series, and I just wanted to react and share this story with y'all. So I mean, it's some raw, real, and it's an eye-opening story. It's really about the importance of awareness, testing, and also communication in relationships. That's something we definitely got to do. You definitely got to get tested with your partner and open your mouths. Communicate with your soulmate. It shouldn't be no secrets, right? Facts. Oh, let's check out a couple of videos. And this thing been giving me problems all day. I didn't try to do this video, and 16 times. Yeah, AT&T service was fucking up. Like, man.
I can't. She get on my nerves. I'm about to get rid of her, and then we just start. All right. So, how did he give me HIV? Part 1. So I was actually a little leery about doing this, not because I didn't want to share this information or do it, because I mean it's kind of really out there, probably not in the context that you're about to get it, but for the simple fact that old girl just did a whole 50 parts, and I'm like, bruh, it was good. Definitely had me for a whole day. And people were messaging me and was like, I feel like you need to do this. Why haven't you already done this? So people want a story time. So I guess I'm gonna go ahead and give you a story time in depth, I guess. I came out here to the car only because, for you guys who do know me, I have kids. And yes, I do talk about HIV and things around my kids and some of the stuff I've been through. However, I kind of wanted this to be a little more intimate. I didn't want to have a lot of chaos and craziness going on. They're settled. They, doing what they doing. So I said, let me go ahead and just come out here and get this started. So here we go. September the 13th. September 13th, 2003. I went to a party. It was right after Labor Day, and the family friend, and just so y'all know, I'm going to say names. Names are not a hidden thing for me. Names I've already known. It's a whole Google thing around here, so if names and stuff pop up, I mean, hey, it is what it is. Nothing is really a secret when it comes to the aspect of names. So I don't have no fake names for you, okay? The family friend Rhonda, you know, she was having a Labor Day party at her house, and we basically, you know, as a friend of the family, we were invited. And at the time, I was pregnant with my oldest daughter. Now, my oldest daughter right now is 20 years old. She was born September 15th of 2003. So again, here it is, September 13th, 2003. I'm pregnant, pretty much in my 9th month, and we're over here. Now, pretty much nobody really had never met Rhonda's son because he lived in a different state. He lived in South Carolina. We're here in Florida, in Jacksonville, Florida. And so, you know, she introduces him to everybody that comes. So this is my first time meeting him. She comes and say, hey, you never met my son. Come meet my son. So, you know, we get there and she introduces everybody to his son, you know, and me and her son kind of hit it off as far as, you know, friendly. You know, he was friendly, he was nice. Throughout the whole, you know, night of the party, you know, laughing, jokes and things. There was this whole joke about the fact that you didn't even know I was pregnant until I turned around, things like that. And so we're at this Labor Day party, you know, post Labor Day party, and that's that. He goes and, you know, leaves and goes back to South Carolina. We continue to be friends throughout the years. So that was how I was introduced to him. I met him, you know, and that was that. We became friends. We stayed friends. We would communicate throughout the years. And 2 years ago, and, you know, we're just still having this communication. Whenever he would come back and forth to Jacksonville to see his mom, which was very rare, he would say, hey, I'm in town. You want to come over here, or you want to go meet somewhere, you know. And we would, you know, we go out or whatever. Or I'll just pop at his mom's house. Hey, how you doing? And something like that. And that's pretty much how it was. Now, in these 2 years of being his friend, I knew he had girlfriends. Like, actually, when I met him, he was there with a girlfriend. He was there with a girlfriend. Again, this is 2003. So I believe the girlfriend that he was with at the time was someone who, when we get further down in the story, I've recently had a conversation with. So remember that. Remember that part, okay? And so, you know, I knew about girlfriends through this whole moment. I knew he had at least, let's see, I knew of at least 3 girlfriends from that time that I had met him in 2003 up until 2005. I knew of at least 3. And so the next time I really saw him around, like, the whole family atmosphere was in that, you know, around that 2005 era. You know, something happened again, big family event gathering, and I want to say, don't quote me on this, but I want to say it was something that had to do with his mom getting married. Now, full context, because I mean, a lot of people know this because I've explained it a lot of other places, but how is his mom a family friend? So his mother was a family friend because she ended up being the girlfriend to my mother's first cousin. So she's not blood related to us. He's not related to us in any kind of way by blood. It's just the simple fact that
Through marriage.
Just the simple fact that his mom at that time when I was introduced to him was dating my mother's first cousin. And so that's how she was that family friend. Okay. And so at some point they ended up getting married. So she became a part of the family only in the sense of she married him. Again, still no blood relation, none of that. And so when he came back in town for whatever it was we were having in 2005, and he came at that point with someone, the last person I remember him dating. And it was just a different moment then. Like, when I saw him, the whole vibe and mood was different. We were having conversations because he was telling me how, yeah, I'm dating this girl. She came with me, but I kind of really didn't want her to come with me, kind of deal. She's annoying. He's telling me these different things about her. She's annoying. She get on my nerves. I'm about to get rid of her. And then we just start joking and laughing. And, like, he literally at one point during the party left to go to the store or wherever he went. And she's running around frantic looking for him. And everybody know he left because he had already, I guess, been telling different people off and on, like, I don't want to deal with her like that. And, so it was already like, she's looking crazy. But again, I had been his friend for 2 years. So for me, it was a laughing matter in a sense of, why he won't just go ahead and tell this girl he don't want to be her. He done brought her all the way to Florida. She meeting family and friends and all this stuff. So it's like, dude, what are you doing? So at one point, he and I at the party, we started having a conversation, and I was like, what is it that you really want? We were talking about things we really want, and that led to, once that party was over, he's back in South Carolina, us really having the conversations when we speak on the phone about our future. Like, at the time, I was 24. Actually, no, not at that moment I was 24. I believe I was probably 22.
But that nigga like 50.
22 at that point, and he was older than me. He was already in his, like, early 30s. Mid-30s, kind of early to mid-30s at that point. So yeah, he was older than me, but everybody who knows me can tell I've always had this sense, like, when they see me or meet me, I always seemed older than I actually was. Not that I wanted to ever portray myself as being older, but just the fact that I guess my demeanor, the way I come off, the way I'm very knowledgeable about things, they said that I just felt like I had an old soul. So I guess that was kind of, what drew him to me. I'm assuming anyway, that's what's drawing him to me, and what drew a lot of people that were older and wanted to date me. Just, I guess I had that old soul, But yeah, so that's kind of really how we met, and, how we became those friends, and getting to, other points. All right, so how did he give me HIV?
Part 2, baby.
How did he give me HIV? Part 2. All right, so again, after, being his friend and us having the conversations we were having, after seeing each other in 2005, and this was probably like early to mid, I don't think it was summertime yet. He and I had a conversation because, again, we were just friends. And as far as I knew, he had, dumped the old girl. He was single. And we started just having we started having a dating conversation. So he was like, well, why don't I come in town, and why don't we go out and, like, have a real dinner and things like that? And so he came into town. We did that. We had, and then now here we are on a more intimate level. Because, again, like I said, he and I had been friends for 2 years, so I knew people he was dating. I knew certain things about him. I knew about his kids. I knew about his ex-wife. I knew about so many different, like, I felt like I knew everything. Like, when you have someone, you guys are sharing things. You're sharing things about your families. You're around each other, or your families are around each other, so you kind of feel a sense of, like, okay, yeah, this is like somebody I would consider a friend, a best friend. I thought he was like I felt like he was my male best friend, if that makes sense. Us women, sometimes we have a tendency to have that one man where he kind of really know all our business. Okay, so he was kind of that best friend for me at the time, because I really didn't have anybody else that I was really leaning to like that. And so we end up being in a relationship, and we talked every day. just about. He was working at a major manufacturing company in Greer, South Carolina. And I'm not going to say their name because, listen, they not finna come for me. They ain't finna come for me. But he was working for a manufacturing company in Greer, South Carolina. And he was working third shift. So whenever he would get his lunchtime, which would usually be right around the time before I would get ready to fall asleep and go to bed, he would call, we would have our conversation, and we would talk. And then, you know, that'd be the next thing until the next day. And, you know, that went on up until, I say, toward the end of 2006. So toward the end of the 2006, he and I had a conversation about marriage. Now, he had already been married before. I had never been married. I only had one child at the time, the one I was pregnant with when I met him. I had only had her. So we had the conversation. So my first time getting married, you know, I always had this thought, like me and my best friend, when we were little kids, we would say, oh yeah, when we get married, you know, he's going to propose to me. He's going to get down on one knee. I'm going to cry. I'm going to have this whole moment. You know, as kids and little girls with your friends, you planning stuff out. Yeah, you're going to be my maid of honor. You're going to be my bridesmaid. Things like that. So, you know, that didn't happen in that moment. Like, he did not get down on one knee and propose to me. It was literally a conversation he and I had about marriage, a serious and lengthy conversation. And it was just a thing of, well, you know, I wanted to be married because I grew up around everybody who was married. I grew up in a dynamic of longevity. My grandparents were married until my grandfather passed away. My parents, as of this year, will be married 50 years. I was brought up in a church environment, so I saw all these married couples around me all the time. So I wanted to be that young 20-something-year-old who found my partner to be married to for a long time. Like, I felt like that's what I saw and that's what I was used to and that's what I wanted. And I felt like he was that person because, again, this is someone at this point, he's my best friend. He's someone I'm looking to as someone I could be with for the rest of my life. And so he basically, you know, said, yeah, let's get married. You know, but I didn't know that I was not going to no courthouse for my first time ever getting married. Like, yeah, you didn't get down on one knee and propose, and I didn't do my tears and crying, but we were not going to the courthouse. So we actually did have a church wedding. And so everything was planned out, you know, but leading up to that, there was one thing. So I don't know about any of you, but for me, growing up in a Christian household, Christian pretty much background, being in church almost 6 days a week as a kid, you always hear about, oh, no shacking up, no this before marriage, no that, all that. Now, yes, I held true to a lot of those traditions, but then I feel like I tweaked them a little bit. Now, one thing I was always very adamant with him about was not having unprotected sex until we got married. Now, if we had sex, yes, look, condoms, here you go. Yes, I made sure that if he and I had ever had sex prior to us getting married, that we used condoms, okay? That was something I was very adamant about. And, you know, you hear about shacking up. Oh, don't shack up before you get married. Don't be shacking up. Now, one thing about me, because I had never lived it with anyone else. I had only lived with my parents. You know, even when I was pregnant with my oldest daughter, I was living at home with my parents. I had never lived with another adult other than my parents and my sibling. And so my thing was, since we are, you know, this is something we have set in stone. We're getting married. You live in Spartanburg, South Carolina. I'm in Jacksonville, Florida. I am going to be relocating where you're at, but I feel like it also would be best for me to also know what it's like to live with you before I get married, for the simple fact, what if there's something about our living situation that I don't like, okay? What if it's something about our living situation that I don't like, I can't deal with, And I just did not want to step into a first marriage having that type of issue. Because I know, you're going to have issues in marriages. But being someone who had never been married before, I was very leery of that. And again, he had already been married before and had 2 kids from his first wife. And so, well, here we are. It's December 2006. December 2006. Now, I got sick. I ended up getting sick December, probably November 2006. I ended up getting sick. Long story short, I ended up having parvovirus, which is very rare. But people can get it. Usually, sometimes babies can get it. It comes from being around pets that have parvovirus and dealing with them. And I was working at a daycare where one of the babies came in and had it. We didn't know. I was exposed. There you have it. And I don't care how many times somebody says that can't happen. I have medical documentation that shows my diagnosis, what it was, because I literally had to have a bone marrow biopsy for them to even figure out what was wrong with me, because they didn't know. I was tested for everything, okay?
I ain't never heard of that shit.
At that time. So we knew I had nothing in December 2006. I had nothing out. Every test that you known to man came back negative, okay, except that parvovirus. So that's what I want y'all to remember right there, okay? So December 2006, I packed up my things and I relocated to Spartanburg, South Carolina. Now, when I moved there, at the time he was living, I don't know, listen, if you watching in Spartanburg, I was living in, what was it, Georgetown? Over there on John B. White. You know what John B. White? He was staying in a townhouse over there, and he had a roommate, which we weren't really planning on being there that long. It was like a transitioning type of thing, so it didn't bother me at that point, only because I knew this was just like a temporary situation for both of us, being there with a roommate. So I moved there. I enrolled back into school because I was in school before I left. I enrolled at the University of the University of South Carolina and USC Upstate. So, USC of Spartanburg. I enrolled there. I ended up getting a job at Home Depot. And, everything was going good. Everything was going good. And, I was ready to get married. How did he give me HIV part 2? Alright, so again, how did he give me HIV part 3? Alright, so excuse my sun visor. The sun was trying to get in my face. So I want to make sure y'all could see my face a lot more. And eventually I'm probably going to move into the house to do a couple more parts before I'm done doing some parts for now. But let's see. So December, moved there, got a job at Home Depot. I'm enrolled in college, and things are going good. Now, one thing I will say, so December, I was there before Christmas. So again, I knew that he had broken up with the young lady that he brought to Florida earlier, in 2005. She was out of the picture. She did still have a couple things at that house. So the thing was, okay, she gonna have to make sure she come get her stuff, which she did, okay, because she didn't have anywhere else to put them at the moment. So she came, got her stuff, because I was very adamant about, listen, I don't want to see nothing of nobody else's here. And so one day around Christmas time, I am just sitting there and watching TV, and there's a knock at the door. And so this lady knocks on the door. I had never seen her before. She, asks if Gregory's home. And I'm like, no, he's not here, but how, is there something you need? Oh, I just came to bring the Christmas gift for him and the kids. Okay, cool. I didn't think nothing of it, only because, I just didn't think nothing of it. You know, he has friends, he has coworkers, people, you know, he has a whole life there. Even though I'm now in that life too, I know, you know, he has this life here, he has friends and things. So I'm just like, okay, well, this is somebody bringing something from him and the kids for Christmas, whatever, you know. So he comes and I give him the gifts and everything, and he was like, he had this weird look. He was like, she knocked on the door and she had gifts. You know, he's asking me this question because she told me her name and everything, and I know her name. You know, I remember her name even now. I know she lived in Blacksburg, South Carolina, which is not far from Spartanburg. And she was one of his co-workers. She worked at, you know, the manufacturing plant where he worked as well. And so when he opened the box, because he was like, I'm going to open and see what it is. He opened the box and it was clothes. So my first thought to him, I was like, why would she be buying you clothes? And he was like, well, I don't know. Maybe she heard me say something at work about I like this or that. You know, he's saying these different things and stuff. So I'm just like, okay. And so I told him straight up, I was like, listen, and honestly, he made it known he didn't like whatever it was she bought anyway. I was like, well, since you don't like it, you know, then the tags are still on it. Let's just take it back to the store and get a refund or exchange it or whatever. So she had got it from Sears. We went to Sears, and you know, we didn't have a receipt, so they say, well, we can let you do, you know, a credit, and then you could buy whatever it is you want to buy. So that's what we did. He picked out some stuff he wanted after he returned it, and that was that. So moving forward, you know, here it is now, February 2016. We enjoy Valentine's Day. You know, we go out to eat. There's gifts exchanged, different things, you know, lovey-dovey stuff. Again, now here it is. It's 2007. We set our wedding date for August the 4th, 2007. So which that means we are wedding planning, different things. The wedding was going to be held in Jacksonville, Florida, at the church that I grew up in. You know, he was okay with all of that stuff. And that was that. Now, my birthday came up in April, so, you know, he and I did something for my birthday, things like that. Now, again, remember, I've already told you guys that anytime that he and I had sex before our wedding night, we always use condoms, we always use protection. That was something I've always been adamant about, even though I have a daughter who was born prior to meeting him. Even that situation is a whole story time in itself, because that was a situation where a condom was used and holes were put in the condom purposely, and that's how I became pregnant. My daughter made it through the hole in the condom because she would just really want to be here in this world, okay? And here we are 20 years later. So, you know, that's something I always was at. And the other thing was that I went every year to go and get tested. Every year I made it a point to go get tested. Why? Because in 2005, 2006, I went to school to become a medical assistant. I went to school to become a medical assistant. So I was not only a medical assistant, but I was a phlebotomist. So when I went to the jobs that I worked on, either I was working at the front office doing, you know, front office or stuff, or I was working in the back office. I was doing lab draws, I was doing vitals, whatever it was. There at any point I could have come in contact with a needle. There were circumstances where I could have come in contact with a patient who was HIV positive and gotten stuck by a needle working. So one of the things that I always said, well, every year, because I really was never a sexually active person, and so every year I would go get tested, because with my pain tolerance is very high. So say if I am working, I may not necessarily feel if I was to get stuck by a needle. So like I say, it was a routine. I went every year, got tested. So I said to him, I said, well, since we're going to be getting married, it's time for me to go and have my yearly everything done, like my yearly physical, my yearly testing that I do. I say, why don't we do it at your primary care physician? Because at this point, yes, I know he has a primary care physician. He's working a job. He has insurance through his job. Like, I'm knowing all of these things. So there was nothing that, again, I felt like there was nothing I didn't know. I knew his, routines and certain habits. I knew, like I said, I knew the doctor he went to, things like that. So I said, well, let me go ahead and establish myself as a patient at your doctor. And so that's what I did. I made the appointment, and I say, well, do you want to go ahead and get tested too? Since I'm going, you want to get tested? Not one time did he say, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go and get tested. I don't need to get tested. Why would I do that? He was willingly wanting to go with me to go and get tested. So we went to do our testing. So I don't know if any of you ever went and had testing done with a partner. Typically, when you go get tested with a partner, you are not in the same room, because they're going to put you in the room because they're going to ask personal questions. They're going to want to know any of your previous sexual partners. They're going to want to know you have any habits, drug habits, drinking habits, different things. They're going to ask all these different questions. And they feel like if you're together, you may not be as genuine and truthful and forthcoming as if the person was not in the room. So they put you in separate rooms. And so he's in one room, I'm in the other room. Now in my room, I'm definitely in this room getting tested. They're doing my blood draw, because at this time it's 2007, so they're drawing blood, and they're like, okay, we're going to take the blood, we're going to send it off to the lab. It's going to take about 2 weeks to come back. They're telling me all this information. It's going to take 2 weeks to come back. And I'm like, okay, cool. I knew this already. And he's in the other room getting tested, so I thought. And we moved forward. We had made the decision because I felt, again, this is someone that is my friend. I trust him. Like, I had a level of trust. I'm not gonna want to marry someone I don't trust, okay? So at this point, I'm trusting him, and we had come up with the discussion of saying, okay, well, we will sit together with the doctor and we will disclose our test results in front of the doctor to each other. So basically, as we're sitting with each other, I'm going to tell him what mine said. He's going to tell me what his says. And that was that. And that was the decision that we made. So here it is. Now it's time for us to have this appointment. Okay. And me personally, I wasn't really worried because, again, I do this every year. I know I wasn't having promiscuous sex, so I wasn't having risky sex. So I didn't really have any issues or anything. So the time came for us to go back to the doctor and for us to know our results. How did he give me HIV part 3?
Part 4, baby.
All right, so excuse my sun visor. The sun. All right, how did he give me HIV part 4? Okay, so here we are. We are at the doctor's office, and it's time for us to get our results. We are, separate getting our results. So I knew my results was negative. He's in the other room getting his results. And then it's time for us to come into one room together with the doctor. Okay? So we're sitting in front of the doctor. The doctor's going over other things with me as far as, being a new patient. He's, giving me all the whole new patient spiel and things, and, just how the practice works and how he works and operates as a physician, things like that. So it comes to the point where he says, well, I know we've discussed individually your test results, and are you guys ready to tell each other, your test results? So I'm sitting in front of the doctor, and I'm telling him my test results show that everything's negative, and he tells me the same thing. Right there in front of the doctor. Again, the three of us are in the room, and he's telling me right in front of the doctor that all of his labs that he had done, which were HIV testing as well as STD panels, everything's coming back negative. Okay, cool. I mean, honestly, at that moment, I didn't expect to hear any other answer. Like, there was nothing that would have told me that I should have heard anything other than what I heard in that moment, okay? So we fast forward, and we continue to get, on the road to getting married. Now, throughout this whole process, because I feel like I need to really explain some things too, because as I move forward through this story, there's going to be a lot of questions and a lot of like, girl, what the hell is wrong with you? You ain't see these red flags. Let me tell you something. Absolutely not. But there's reasons why a lot of those red flags were hidden or maliciously taken away out of the equation for me to not be able to see. So again, remember I told you that his mom was a family friend. So I knew his mom before I knew him, okay? I knew his mom before I knew him. There were moments when his mom would say, hey, I'm going to eat breakfast at this diner. Do you want to come with me? So I would go with her, eat breakfast. She would invite me to her house when she would have events off and on. But, this was not even with him being in the picture or anything. Like, again, I knew her before him, okay? She was Miss Rhonda to me. This is someone who I knew and all at her house, whatever it was. And so, again, this is someone who I considered a friend, someone who I would trust in my life because she was someone who I was around a lot, okay? So I feel like if there was something wrong or if there was something that she would have ever needed to tell me, I feel like she would have or should have come to me and told me if there was something wrong, something that I really needed to know, okay? So even through this whole process of us leading up to the marriage, so within this year of 2007, again, still she's with me. Even when I was sick and in the hospital, she was at my bedside. I mean, now it all makes perfect sense why she was at my bedside, but however, at that time I just felt like she was a concerned future mother-in-law. Oh, my daughter-in-law is sick, I need to be by her side, let her know since my son isn't here, he's in South Carolina, that at least she has me here with her. That is my thought. That is what I felt in that moment, seeing her at my bedside as much as I did. She take me with her to a sister's house. She take me just meeting different people. I met people in their family. I met people that they considered friends and best friends and things like that. And as we're planning this wedding, like literally she's with me at the bridal shop as I'm picking out my wedding dress, okay? Are you listening? So this lady, if there was ever anything wrong or anything that she felt I needed to know, there was ample opportunity for her to tell me, okay? Plenty of opportunity for her to tell me. Now, obviously that didn't happen because we're here. So one of the things that also really bothered me was the fact that people started having these, like, I would hear certain things. Oh, she married him because he's an older man and he has money. Like, there was things that people would whisper, oh, why she marry him, he's old. So now at the time that we're getting ready to get married in 2007, I was 24. I turned 24 in April of 07, and he was 37. So that is our age gap in 2007. I was 24, he was 37. He wasn't turning 38 until after the wedding. And so, that was a lot of whisper, oh, she just want this man for his money. Because granted, the place that he was working at the time, the manufacturing company, he was making about $25, $26 an hour. And so, people assume $25, $26 an hour, oh, he got a lot of money. But people do have bills and other things and responsibilities that they have to take care of. So I, on a personal level, knew what his expenses and different things were, because again, we were getting married and I was coming into his situation by leaving Florida and coming to South Carolina into his, domain, so to speak. So that's kind of where that was at, and I just, ignored it, didn't really listen to it too much. Now, when it came to the wedding planning, of course, my best friend was my maid of honor, and he had his best friend as his best man. So we've doing all this planning and everything. I've planned it out, we in the church. I got my colors. I have who I want to marry me. We have songs. We have catering. We have decorations. Everything is planned out. Everything is, we're working on all this stuff. Now, we get to a point where, he also had another daughter too. So he had 2 kids from his ex-wife, but he also had an older daughter from his girlfriend he had when he was in high school. And so that daughter lived on the West Coast. I believe it was in Arizona or somewhere over there on the West Coast. So it was a thing of, okay, is she coming to the wedding? If she is, we need to make sure she gets here. She was coming. She was actually in the wedding, in the bridal party. So, we got all this stuff worked out. So he had 3 kids, okay? And everything seemed fine. Everything was going good. We planning things. We're doing things. I was going to school. I was working. He would go to work, come home. He come home from his 3rd shift. Only time that he would not come home directly from work is if he said, hey, because he was this quote-unquote handyman. So there were times when he would say, well, I got to go and help such and such with something at their house. They asked me if I could come and help them with a plumbing or with this or with that, whatever it is, plumbing. So I didn't think none of it. This is what he did. He was like a Mr. Fix-It type of guy. He liked to, exercise his manly fixing things, so that didn't bother me. He'll call me on the way home. He got off work and said, hey, I'm going to be running late. I'm going to do X, Y, and D for such and such. Like that. Oh, so nothing out of the ordinary. Again, there was nothing that ever led me to think anything other than what I knew. There were no red flags. There was no signs. Like, nothing. When I say nothing, I'm telling you guys, me and this man never argued. I mean, we might have had disagreements of things, but we always talked it out. We never went to bed angry. We, had great communication as far as, making sure he understood what I was comfortable and liked, and vice versa. Never had any issues until a couple days before the wedding. Okay? Because again, we got married in Florida, and we had to drive from South Carolina here to Florida. And that is when all the shit hit the fan. That's when it hit the fan, y'all. That's when it hit the fan.
Okay, this shit about to pick up now.
All right, how did he give me HIV part 4?
Shit, I ain't gonna lie.
How did he give me HIV part 5?
I'm kind of tired.
All right, so yeah, y'all ready? Listen, hold on. Let's buckle up for this one. Y'all ready?
Let's go, baby. We with you.
Let's buckle up.
We right with you.
Cause you about to go on a ride, okay? So, here it is now. I believe it's 2 days before the wedding. Cause again, we had everything already planned out. I had someone already in Jacksonville planning, getting everything together. Any of the little details I was able to get done once I got there. So here it is 2 days before the wedding. We get to his mom's house. We get to Rhonda's house, and we pull in the driveway. Kids get out. Because, again, we have all the kids with us. Plus, his daughter had a son at the time. So he's with us too, the whole, me, him, and all the kids. I was the whole 24-year-old grandma. Listen. So we get to her house, and she pulls me into her garage. So she's got like a little two-car garage. She pulls me out there, and she says, I need to ask you a question. So I'm not thinking anything of it, honestly, because remember, like I said, she was my friend. This is someone who I consider this is someone I knew already. So I'm like, oh yeah, we could go out here. What's up? You know, what's going on? That's how I'm reacting, like, and friendly. Because again, I'm not expecting shit to get ready to hit the fan. So, she says, has Gregory ever mentioned anything to you about HIV? And I look at her like, I say, why would he mention anything to me about HIV? Like, that was my question to her. Why would he mention HIV to me? And she said, just ask him. Go ask him about HIV. So, okay, yeah. My red flag is all the way up in, listen, woo, woo, red flag on the mother play, okay? So, I go in the house. Now, people who know me, they know I am not the type of person to do no he say, she say. I'm going to confront. Like, listen, we going to get all the business clear, okay? So, I went into the house. I told her, I said, you stay right here. Right here. Don't go nowhere. I went into the house and I pulled him out there with his mom, okay? The three of us are right here, face to face. 1, 2, 3, okay? I said to him, your mom told me to ask you about HIV. What is she talking about? He looks at his mom. He looks at me. And with no hesitation, he says, I don't know why she's telling you to ask me about HIV. Why are you telling her to ask me about HIV? What are you talking about? That's what he said, okay?
Shit, what you talking about, Mama?
His mother, Rhonda, the family friend, the woman who I knew before I knew his ass, ain't open her mouth and say nothing. She said nothing, okay? She said nothing. She didn't call him a liar. She didn't say, oh, you know what I'm talking about. She didn't say anything. She just stood there with her lips closed looking crazy as hell, okay? So at this point, I'm thinking, okay, does this woman just not want us to get married at this point? Like, what happened? Like, that's what I'm thinking. Like, well, why would, she... At this point, we walked away from each other, and I'm saying to him, why would she ask that question? He was like, I don't know what's going on with her. Like, that's his whole thing. Now, full context, his mom has a history of being a liar. Not because someone told me she was a liar, because I've seen it with my own eyes. There was a time when she was comfortable enough to bring me around her and her sister when they would partake in smoking marijuana. Now, y'all know I don't smoke. I'm not no smoker.
Ain't nothing wrong with smoking.
So I was not partaking in no marijuana. But she felt comfortable enough to bring me around, and she would say, "Well, don't say anything to your cousin, because he don't know, and all, like, he don't know, and this is just something between us girls," that type of thing, So I'm already sitting here looking at her weird, because I'm like, dang. Now that I'm finna marry her son, I'm seeing a whole new person. Who is this lady? This is not the person that I knew. That's how I'm looking at it. So I felt like she, and there's other things that I'm not going to talk about, but there were reasons to believe that she could have been just saying something just because.
Shit.
Okay.
That shit
and also for the simple fact that here you are, I'm presenting you with a person in front of you who you're saying I need to ask a question to. They said something that basically called you a liar to your face, and you did not rebuttal and come back and say anything. So people always say, oh, well, that was your sign right there. Listen, the sign was right there blinking and clear, and the red flag was up, and I was on it. Okay? I was on it. But then I was also presented with a situation where she did not rebuttal or call him a liar.
I would have checked that ass right then and there.
She basically made it look like, dang, it ain't work. Like her lie didn't work. He made her look like a liar, or like she was someone who was trying to stir up problems or issues, or make it like, she didn't want us to get married. That's how it came off. And if you don't see it that way, I don't know what to do or tell you. I can't make you see it. Okay. So we get through that moment. Again, she never mentions it again. It's never brought up ever again.
I would have
The
brought
words
that shit up
HIV were never brought up ever again in any situation or moment, okay?
Calling her ass.
Until.
Blowing her motherfucking ass up. Fuck
Further
you talking
on.
about, bitch.
So, we get married. Here's wedding day. Now, I will tell you something. So, I told y'all his best man. This was someone who was his best friend, okay? So, I thought. Now, a couple years ago, I can't really tell you how many years ago, I would literally have to go and look and research. But there was some years ago, I got a message from that said best man, and he was like, listen, I know this, and this happened, and I just hate that it happened, but I need you to know something. I did a podcast episode because he did a lot of podcasting and NPR radio type things, and so he was like, I did this podcast episode, but I want you to listen to it before I release it because it is about you. Okay? He said it is about you, and so in that moment, I'm like, okay. I listened to it, and when I tell you I listened to it and I heard some things that I never in my wildest imagination could I have ever imagined that I was going to be hearing. And I believe that I have that podcast episode uploaded to my page already. It's called, I forgot what it's called. I have to go back and look and see what it's called, but it's already uploaded on here for people to listen to because I uploaded it like sometime last year.
I don't know if they still mad.
But one thing that I did not know as we were getting married on that day, as I was walking down the aisle, I didn't hear, but other people heard it, and the best man and the pastor obviously heard it because it happened right by them. So the way the best man described it in the podcast, he says that, they're standing up there, they're waiting for the bride to walk down the aisle, and then this woman, before the bride gets ready to come down the aisle, someone comes into the church. Like maybe they could have been running a little late trying to hurry up, and they, rush into their seat. And he was like, he called him Lewis. He was like, and Lewis yelled out loud, God damn, like, she fine. Oh man, I'm gonna hit that. I'm gonna get that. Like saying stuff like that while he's the groom at the altar waiting on the bride to walk down the aisle. Me, I'm the bride, y'all. I didn't know this until a couple years ago when I'm listening to the podcast because he's wanting me to hear it. Like, yo, are you serious? For real? So, yeah, I'm going to make sure that y'all are able to hear that podcast because that's going to give you a lot of information from someone else's point of view who actually witnessed and got information through this whole situation where they were lied to and then the truth unfolded to them. Okay? All right. How did he give me HIV part 6? So I went ahead and came inside because I was getting tired of sitting in the car. All right. So, yeah. So, now here we go. We get married. And our wedding night. Remember I kept saying, our wedding night is the first night that we had unprotected sex. No condom, no protection, nothing. Our wedding night was the first time that we had unprotected sex. We had talked about having kids together. Even though he already had his 3 kids prior, and then I had my daughter. We talked about having a child, at least one child together, to kind of like solidify our union, so to speak. Because again, this was someone who I was like, yeah, when I get married, like there was nothing in me that said when I got married that there was going to ever be an option for divorce, unless there were certain circumstances or something like that. But never did I even like have that as a thought, like, oh, what if he cheat on me? What if he do this? Like, that was never a part of my thought process of getting married. Because, again, I had seen so many people around me who were married, who, had that longevity that I wanted to have. And so, I didn't think nothing, about anything negative in a marriage. So we have unprotected sex our wedding night. And time moves on. Here it is now, October. It's the end of October. At this time, I was working a third shift job doing shipping and receiving. And I started getting sick, y'all. I started getting sick. Like, okay. So I go and get a pregnancy test, and I'm pregnant. Okay? Yeah, I'm pregnant. What? So, I got the pregnancy test. I did a couple of them, make sure I wasn't crazy. He came home and I showed him the test and he was excited. Like, his reaction was excitement, That's what I assumed it was excitement, because that's what it seemed. And so I called the doctor. I say, listen, I'm pregnant. I'm new here to the city pretty much. I don't know where I need to go. So my primary care physician, the same one who, I went and saw that summer and established myself with, they referred me to the OBGYN. So, if you've ever been pregnant or, you go through the whole process. You go in there. Your first visit, you're not seeing a doctor. You usually go in, they're going to get your history and physical information. They're going to draw labs. And then they'll reschedule you to come back in to have your first appointment with the doctor and to go over your labs, because they want to get a baseline. Usually when they're getting the labs, it's because they want to get a baseline. They want to make sure you don't have high blood pressure, that you don't have diabetes, that you're healthy to have a pregnancy. So I did all of this. My next appointment wasn't scheduled to go back until the Monday after Thanksgiving of 2007. However, leading up until Thanksgiving, I kept getting so nauseous. I was throwing up everything I ate. I would just throw it, but nothing would stay down. And so I called my doctor because I wasn't feeling well. And I was like, listen, I can't keep food down. I don't feel good. I feel very weak. And she said, sounds like you're dehydrated. Can you come into the office? So here it is, November 21st, 2007. It's the day before Thanksgiving. My mom and my aunt had came to visit us for Thanksgiving, because that was going to be like my first like real holiday away from family. So my mom came, my aunt came with her, so she wasn't driving and coming by herself. And they were there with us for Thanksgiving. And so he goes with me, he takes me to the doctor, and we get there. All right, so this is really the part that you really got to pay attention to. We get there, and we go into this little room. We go into a small room. It's not a big room. It's not a big exam room. It's just a little room with this dull gray paint on the wall. There's one of those plastic cold reclining chairs. There's one IV pole. There's another chair for like if you bring somebody with you. And there's not even like a table. There's just like the little rolling stool like a doctor or a nurse can sit on it. There's not even a table, computer, none of that is in this room. So I'm in there. They've hooked me up to IV fluids because, again, I was severely dehydrated. So they're giving me IV fluids. They're keeping a check on me, giving me also nausea medicine. So at this point, I'm kind of like loopy in a sense from the nausea medicine. And so the doctor comes in and she was like, well, is it okay if I ask your husband to step out of the room while we talk for a moment? And again, I'm a medical assistant, phlebotomist. I understand HIPAA and privacy. I didn't think anything of it when she's asking me, can he step out of the room? Yes, you can talk to me. Yeah, cool. So he steps out of the room, and as he steps out of the room, she comes back in. And she says to me, well, I got all of your labs back already, and I just kind of wanted to go over them with you. And she's like, well, everything looks okay except one thing. And I'm looking at her like, well, what's the one thing? And then in my mind, I'm like, oh. So I literally said it. I was like, oh, my blood sugar was high, wasn't it? And I'm giving her this whole thing about, oh, yeah, when I was pregnant with my oldest daughter, toward the end of the pregnancy, I had gestational diabetes. Am I going to have to do insulin again? Like, this is where I'm thinking, like, am I going to have to do insulin again? Like, I hated sticking myself with the insulin needles. You know, this is what I'm saying to her. And she's looking at me like, girl, this ain't what, this is not what I need to tell you. Like, that's her expression. So then I kind of like back up a little bit and I'm like, I guess she realized my face because she's not responding to me saying what I'm saying. And she says, well, your labs came back saying that you are HIV positive. And I just kind of like, at this point, like I feel like I'm a very good person with giving eye contact. And at this moment, I'm not giving any eye contact. I literally found a spot on this gray wall and I just stared at it. And she's still talking to me. She's saying, it almost felt like when she's talking, it almost like the whole sound in the room just blurred out. I didn't hear nothing. I'm just staring at this gray wall because at this point I'm numb. I'm numb as shit. Like, I'm so numb. Like, I didn't know how to react. I didn't. And so she says to me, do you want me to bring your husband back in the room for you to tell him, or do you want me to tell him? And I said to her, I said, you can bring him back in and you can tell him. I said, because if you're telling me that I'm HIV positive, he is the reason why. And she kind of just looked at me like, what she mean by that? So she brings him back into the room and she tells him. Now, keep in mind, if you are being told something as devastating as your partner is HIV positive, you're not going to be sitting there cool, calm, and collected. You're not going to be nonchalant. Like, you're not going to be just calm. She tells him that I'm HIV positive, and he says to her, we'll get through this. We'll work this out. This was his freaking words to this doctor. Like, he wasn't hysterical. Like, what? What you mean? What you mean? How? How that happened? Do I need to get checked? Like, this was none. His reaction was nothing like that. His reaction was, we'll get through this. We'll work this out.
Run this shit over.
So then I guess the doctor picked up on his reaction too. And then that visit pretty much ended because I've gotten all my IV fluids. I've gotten, you know, what I needed in that moment. So as we get to the car, again, I'm still drowsy. He's driving. We get to the car and we get in the car. And the first thing he says to me is, don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody. What do you mean don't tell anybody? Don't tell anybody. And then he reiterates this whole thing of, we'll get through this. We'll work this out. All right. How did he give me HIV?
Man, shit, I would have vanilla skied his ass.
So I went ahead and
throw that motherfucker straight out the bridge.
How did he give me HIV? Part 7. So somebody messaged me and said, girl, I know you ain't finna leave me on that cliffhanger. So since I had to get up and do something, I guess I'll go ahead and give you guys part 7. So yeah, when we got in the car, first thing he said to me was, don't tell anybody.
Straight out the bridge. And
that was like confirmation for me. So you know how I always tell people, you know how when you're watching, like back in the day, you know, for those of you who are 35 and up, maybe 30, you know, back in the day we used to have to watch VCRs on VCR tape, movies on VCRs. And so you know how when you rewind it while you're watching it and it's like blah, 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 that is literally what happened in my mind in that moment. Even though, you know, I picked up the red flag of his mom telling me to ask about that and everything, and I did. I literally just told you guys what I asked him and what his response was. And I'm just, in my head, I'm like, wait a minute, okay. But then now I'm thinking like, how? We went and got tested. I told him I was negative. He told me he was negative in front of the doctor. Like, how? Like, that's all I could just keep saying was how. But I kept putting the pieces of the puzzle together in my head because, again, I already knew I was negative. I knew I was negative December 2006 when I was in the hospital. I knew I was negative when we got tested that summer before we got married. So I'm just like, what in the world? So, again, we're sitting in this car, and he's told me this, and I didn't say anything. Like, literally. My mom was there for Thanksgiving visit. I didn't say anything. And, I mean, that's what it was. I didn't say anything for a couple weeks. It took me a couple weeks before I think it really, like, hit me to the point where I'm driving to work, third shift, it's raining, and I just call my mom crying, like hysterically crying. She's thinking something's wrong, and I'm like, just I couldn't get my words out. And so finally, once I was able to get to the job, get in the parking lot, excuse me, y'all, get to the parking lot, and I tell her the doctor told me that I was HIV positive. And she just started crying, and she's just like we both were still I was definitely still at this point of like, how or why, like what? And so, of course, through like maybe that next week or so, we're talking to my dad, let him know, my brother, my oldest daughter's godmother, we talked to her, and because these were people that were going to bring me comfort, and me knowing that they knew, so that if I needed someone to call, I knew I had these people I could call, and so the question then became, what are you going to do? Because remember, we had just got married. Like, we're still newlyweds. I'm newly pregnant. When I say newly pregnant, I had not even had my first ultrasound yet. Like, that new. So newly pregnant, all of this stuff, and it was just like, what are you going to do? So for the whole month of December, I said, you know what? I'm just going to come to Jacksonville for a couple weeks. His sister at the time, and I believe she still does, live in New York. And so we had already got her a plane ticket to come visit us because she wanted to come for Christmas and visit her brother and us for Christmas. And so I say, well, at some point I was going to be back before she left. Her flight left like, I think 2 or 3 days after Christmas. So I stayed in Jacksonville pretty much the whole December. Because honestly, I didn't know how to deal with him. I didn't know how to be around him. Being around him, I felt disgusted. I felt really, really disgusted because here is someone who I trusted, someone who I thought was my best friend, someone who I thought I knew everything about. Keyword, knew everything about, okay? And I didn't. And he kept calling my phone. When you coming home? Because I never gave a date. I never said when I was coming home. So he kept calling me. When are you coming home? What do you think? Like, he's trying to figure out where my head is at. What am I thinking? And so I went ahead and I told my parents, I said, you know what? I'm going to go back. And I did. I went back 2 days after Christmas, so December 27th, 2007, I went back. And when I went back with really only one thing on my mind, and that was to basically figure out how to leave. I hadn't discussed it with him because one of the things I knew about him, as long as I knew him, I knew that if I told him that I didn't want to stay with him, I didn't want to stay married, that he was going to say or do whatever he needed to do to try to get me to stay. And, during that time, being naive, I probably would have. Stayed if I would have allowed him to know and have the conversation with me about staying. And so I never told him any plans or any thoughts that I was having. Now, one thing I can tell you is I was the homemaker of the house. So while I was gone, he wasn't really going grocery shopping. There wasn't no food in the house, none of that. So when I got back, I'm pregnant. I need to eat. All this stuff. So I told him, I was like, look, we got to get groceries. There's no food in here. So we get in the car, and I'm driving. He's in the passenger seat. We get in the car, and we go to the store. Now, one thing I can say, I don't know if you guys can tell by now that I do have a little sense of humor. Not always serious all the time. And so sometimes when I'm driving, I see some of the weirdest stuff. Like, I'm that one that's going to catch you walking down the sidewalk, tripping over your feet. Like, I'm the one that's going to catch you walking into that wall that you thought nobody saw you walking to. That's me. And so we're in the car. I'm driving. He's in the passenger seat. And I just burst out laughing, y'all. I just started laughing. And he's looking around. What is she? What's so funny? Like, he was like, what you saw? What's so funny? And I was like, oh, I just thought of a new way to you today. Yeah. That's where my head was at. My head was there. I was to that point. I was to the point of rage. I tell people all the time, I literally, once I got back and I was faced with him again, I went through every single emotion that you could think of. I went through sadness, depression. I went through thinking about a moment, I probably thought of a happy moment, and then I say, well, he done messed that happy moment up, and I got into a moment of rage. I got to the point of rage where that's what I thought. Every time I looked at him, I thought of a new way to do it. I did. I really did. And I knew at that point it was time for me to go. It was time. It was time for me to go. It was time for me to get all my stuff, pack it up, and go. So again, I didn't tell him that's what I was going to do. From that moment on, he didn't sleep in the room no more. Because, we were still sleeping in the same bed. But when he realized that's where my headspace was at, he was sleeping on the couch. I got up to go in the kitchen to get water in the middle of the night. He looking to see, oh, shoot, what is she doing? Like, he was paranoid at that point. So, yeah, I knew it was time to go. Because I would ask him questions. I would ask him, like, things that I want to know. Like, because by this point, I believe he already knows that he knows I know, like, dude, you already had this and you didn't say nothing. So I'm asking him questions like, where you get it from? Why you didn't tell me? Why you kept this? Like, I'm asking him these questions, and for the life of me, I don't understand why he would not tell me anything. How did he give me HIV? Part 8. Now, I will say this. So, go back just a little bit, because during that whole moment, like I said, I'm asking him all of these questions. I'm asking him where he get it from. He's not giving me answers. He's not telling me what I want to hear. Now, in the midst of all of this that has taken place from the time the doctor told me that I was positive up until the moment I left, came back, I had to go to the health department. So anytime someone gets diagnosed with an STD, the health department will contact you. They'll ask you to come into the office. Now, being that he and I were married, we were asked to come in together. And the lady asked us to come in. We did. She had kind of almost like the doctor office. We in separate rooms talking, She's asking me these questions. So, who have you had sex with in the past however long? Him. Nobody else? No. Him. And then I explained to her, our wedding night was the first time we had unprotected sex, and I don't know whatever it is he's saying to her. I don't know what's being said on his end to her, So, we leave that appointment. They give me this bag of condoms. And we get home. And again, I'm pissed off. Like, I'm pissed. I'm mad. I'm angry. I'm just like infuriated with this man because I couldn't believe nothing that was happening in that moment. Like, I look back on it now and I don't even understand how I made it right here to 2024. Like, that's crazy. And so she gives me this bag of condoms and she's like, you know, I know that's your husband and everything. She say, but I think she couldn't really tell me what to do. In a way, she was kind of saying like, you know, it would be good for you guys to use these condoms when you're having sex. Like, she never explained it. She just gave me the bag of condoms. And me being the type of person I am, you know, I told y'all before me and him even had unprotected sex, I was very adamant about condoms. So I remember it was one moment, I guess he thought that I was calm and cool, and he approached me in a manner of like trying to have sex with me. And I basically told him no. And he was like, what you mean no? Like, he's like, what do you mean no? You're my wife. I say, listen, I'm not having sex with you. And I see, and if I did have sex with you, and I grabbed a bag of condoms, I said, if I did have sex with you, it's going to be with one of these. And I threw the whole bag at him. And he like flew out the bag all over him. And he got mad. Like, he really got mad. And I was like, listen, I'm not finna play with you. I'm not finna deal with you. Leave me alone. And he just kept bothering me to the point where he was over me, basically trying to make me have sex with him. And again, I'm consistently telling him no. Number one, I'm still taking this medicine because they gave it to me for my nausea. So I'm drowsy. I ain't feeling the best anyway because I'm still throwing up. And here you are telling me that I'm still going to have sex with you. So it all boiled down to the fact of him forcing himself to have sex with me. And honestly, I don't even remember. I blacked out. The only thing I remember was waking up, sitting in the bathtub. I've never been a bath, except when I was a little kid, I've never been a bathtub person. I like get in the shower, take me a shower. And I just remember waking up, kind of like curled up in the bathtub, sitting in the water in the bathtub, crying. And I just remember just crying, like I'm crying. And I got out, I dried myself off, got myself, to go to bed. He wasn't even in the room when I came out of the bath. And so, like probably within that next day or two, that's when I got on the phone and I called his mom. Okay. I got on the phone, I called his mama because at this point of things, I hadn't talked to anybody in his family. I hadn't talked to his mom, I hadn't talked to his sister. And so I called his mama and I told her that he gave me HIV. Even in that conversation, she never said anything to me like, well, I knew and I was trying to tell you. Like, she never even acknowledged the fact that she knew in that conversation. At that point, from my understanding, was I'm telling her for the first time that you see what I'm saying? Like, she never acknowledged it to me that, well, I knew this. I was trying to tell you. Like, I would have understood more if she would have said to me in that moment, like, I did try to tell you. He called me a liar and I didn't know how to react in that moment. Like, if she would have acknowledged the fact that she just dropped the ball as far as not pushing the issue of saying, listen, he lying. This is what it is. She still didn't acknowledge it. So again, I'm having this conversation with her and I'm telling her what's going on. And she's asking me what the doctors are saying. I'm telling her whatever the doctor said at that moment. And then she started asking me too, well, what are you planning on doing? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm pregnant. We just got married. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't. I continued to go to school as long as I could mentally deal with it. I continued to go to work until I couldn't go to work anymore. it got to the point where the doctors let me know that not only was I pregnant with one baby, I was pregnant with two. I was finally had my first ultrasound, and it said I was pregnant with twins. So at that point, my pregnancy was already considered high risk because of me being HIV positive, but now it's like a double high risk. Because not only am I HIV positive at this point, I'm pregnant with twins. And that just added a whole nother level of stress on me. And so...
Man, the universe
yeah.
on some bullshit sometimes.
So moving back forward, so I get back,
Shit don't be
you know,
fun.
to South Carolina and everything. And so, again, his sister was there. Now, me and his sister, I feel like we had a pretty good relationship. We would talk on the phone all the time. She's really kind of straightforward type of person. And so, you know, I feel like like I said, we had a good relationship. So, I'm there. She's interacting with me. Again, she don't know he's HIV positive. She don't know I'm HIV positive. It's just like I was gone for Christmas. I came back. That's all she knew. She didn't know why I was gone. She didn't know nothing. And so, the next day her flight was to leave, and you know, she went back to New York. Now, again, y'all know I said that I was finna get my shit and go. Okay? I was. So I called my friend sis that lived there. I had known her for years. A lot of people who know me, my real true people, the ones that call me Bird. I tell people all the time, if you hear anybody call me Bird without the lady, that means they've known me since 99, 2000. Okay? They've known me a long time. And I called my girl sis, and I was like, listen, this is what's going on. She didn't know. Like, at this point, nobody's knowing anything because I haven't told anybody. So I told her what was going on. I called my cousin that lived there too, and I said, listen, cuz, I need your help. Sis and her son already had agreed to come and help me. And he had to be back to work on New Year's Eve. So December 31st, 2007, he had to go back to work to this manufacturing company. Christmas break was over. It was time to go back to work. So I waited for him to leave, and I called both of them. I said, all right, he's getting ready to leave. Y'all can start heading this way. Because by the time they would have gotten there, he would have been gone. And so they went ahead and got there. We started packing everything up. Like, I literally had no boxes. Like, when I say I had no boxes, I had nothing to pack anything in. So it was literally me just taking, like, I was taking stuff, getting a sheet, wrapping them in the sheets. Let's take it to the car. Whatever would not fit in my SUV I had at the time, I left it at my friend's house until I went back at a later date and got it. And I packed up everything. When I say everything, I'm talking about everything. Every single thing that I came into that marriage with, I left with. How did he give me HIV? Part 8. Now, I will say this. So, go back. How did he give me HIV? Part 9. All right. So, yeah. Whatever he had when I came into that marriage, it was going to go with me. So, we moved everything that I owned out of the apartment. And so I knew that when he got off the next morning and he came home, that he was going to wonder not only where was the stuff at, but where was I? And so, I mean, the whole night was normal. We were packing. He did his usual call because typically just like when we were dating at nighttime when it was lunch break, he called me before it was time for me to go to bed, and it was a normal conversation. Good night. And that was that. So my friend sis was like, listen, you cannot drive on that road. I'm not going to let you get on the road driving back to Florida at this time of night. So you just stay here, go to sleep, and you leave in the morning. And so the morning came, and I'm looking at the time because I'm like, okay, this is about time he get off work. All right, it's about time that he it should be walking in the door. I'm going to give it about a few minutes, and my phone going to ring. And like clockwork, my phone rang. And my heart started racing when it rung because I was like, wait a minute. Whew, here we go. And I didn't answer it. I didn't answer the phone. I didn't. So he called back again, and I answered it. I answered the phone, and I'm thinking, listen, come on now. Stuff is gone. I'm gone. I'm thinking, okay, he's confused. What's going on? This and this and this. No. This man asked me, why didn't I leave him something to cook with in the oven? Because yes, my peoples, listen. When I said I was going to take everything that I came into that marriage with, I absolutely meant it. When I got into that marriage with him, he was living a true, quote unquote, bachelor lifestyle. He did not have a whole lot of things to cook with in the kitchen. He did not have a full bedroom suit. None of that stuff. None of that stuff. So when I left, that stuff came with me. I did not just leave his clothes thrown everywhere. They stayed folded. I took them out of all the dresser drawers. I laid them out I put a garbage bags across and I laid them on the garbage bags. If they was hanging in the closet, I left them hanging in the closet. Okay. But I took my whole bedroom suit with me. I took my pots and pans. I took all the wedding gifts that had not even really been opened. They came too. Yeah, I took it all. And that was his thing to me. He didn't ask me nothing. He just wanted to know why I ain't leave him nothing to cook with in the oven. Because honestly, it was mine. That's why. You ain't had nothing to cook with in the oven before I came in. You ain't going to have nothing to cook with in the oven when I'm gone unless you go buy your own, okay? And so I got on the road that same day. I got on the road and I made my way back to Florida. And I'll never forget. I stopped probably when I got near, I want to say, is it Matthews or St. Matthews, South Carolina? I got somewhere up in there. You know, I'm already on 95, driving down, and I believe that was 95. I think I was already off of I-26. But I get near, I know it was Matthews. I can't remember if it was St. Matthews or Matthews, but I got to Matthews, South Carolina, and I got to stop at the gas station. And I'm pumping my gas. I got my gospel music playing because that was what that's what was helping me in that moment. Like, that's what was helping me. And I never forget the song that was playing. It was Shekinah Glory. The song Yes. And that song was playing, and I had the door propped open while I was pumping the gas, and the song I had it just blasting. And I think this man probably saw me when he was going in to pay, and when he came out, he just came over to me because he saw me crying. I was crying. Like, I didn't even care that anybody saw me crying. And he just came over to me and he said, whatever is wrong, he said, I don't know what it is and you don't have to tell me. He said, but whatever is wrong, it's going to be okay. He said, it's going to be okay. And when he said that to me, I believed it. I believed it in that single moment. When he said that to me, I believed it and I received it. Okay. And so I got back in the car. I made it back to Florida. And again, this is January 1st, New Year's Day. Got back to my parents' house. My dad was like, don't worry about getting that out of the car. I will get it out whenever we get it out. And so the thing was, now here I'm back in Florida. I got to get back into a doctor's office. I was able to get into the OBGYN doctors here. The doctor that I got into, he's an infectious disease physician that does maternity. So mostly all of the patients that he sees, they are women who are pregnant and HIV positive. So that made me a little more comfortable knowing that this was something that he dealt with. What I didn't know, he could answer for me. You know, instead of it just being a regular general OBGYN, not really understanding how to care for me in the aspect of now here I am HIV positive. And so got into care, and it's January. It's like the end of January, or, you know, middle to end of January. And my aunt calls, my Aunt Betty. She called turn on the news, turn on the news. And I'm like, why is she telling me to turn on the news? It was the morning news. So this is like 7 or 8 a.m. in the morning. She's calling me, waking me up. Turn on the news, turn on the news. So I turn on the news. And there was a story on the news where there was a homosexual couple. And the older male had got charged, arrested, and sentenced in the state of Florida for a maximum of 5 years for knowingly infecting his younger partner with HIV. And my aunt was like, because at this point my aunt knows, a couple more people know. My aunt was like, isn't that what Greg just did to you? Isn't that what he just did to you? And I was like, yeah. I say, but I don't, in my head, I'm like, they're not going to do nothing. We married. Like, they're going to probably say, oh, well, that was your husband. Like, she was like, well, you won't know unless you call. And so I just say, you know what? We'll see. So I hung up the phone with her. I called the sheriff's office. I talked to the detective in the sex crimes unit, and I explained to him, I say, listen, I just saw this story on the news. I say, and the same thing happened to me. I said, the only difference is that I'm married. And he said, well, what happened? And I explained to him pretty much what I told you guys already. And he said, you didn't know? I said, I had no idea. I said, I didn't know that he was positive. He didn't tell me. I didn't know. He said, well, if you didn't know, then what he did to you was a crime. And he can be held accountable for that crime that he's done to you. And so I said, well, what do you need me to do? And so he went through the process of explaining to me that I need to file a police report. I'm going to have to come in and also do a full written statement and then allow them to do an investigation. So I called one of my friends who was a police officer at the time, because I didn't want to just talk to a stranger. Even though I was telling certain people my status, I didn't want to talk to a stranger. So he came out, he took the report, and you know, he was sad about it. He was very, very sad about it. And took the report. I went in, did the written statement with the sheriff's office downtown, and they did their investigations. So the next time that I got a phone call from them was on Valentine's Day of 2008. You know, that's the day of love. Like, oh my gosh, we just celebrated Valentine's Day. Last Wednesday, we just had Valentine's Day. You know, that's the day you give gifts. That's the day you go, you know, people go out on dates, whatever. That's the date that we have set aside in society as a day of love and showing our love. So on that day, I showed him my love. I gave him a gift that I don't think he's going to ever forget. How did he give me HIV?
Now this is part 10.
How did he give me HIV part 10? Well, happy Valentine's Day. Yeah. So, oh, that was like a little evil laugh. My bad. But on Valentine's Day 2008, my gift to him was basically him giving something to me that he didn't even know that he was giving to me. So, again, I've talked to the detectives. I've done my police report. I've went in and done my written statement, and they said give them time to investigate. So that was done. Now here it is, February 14th. The detective calls me and he says, listen, we've done our investigations and we believe we have enough evidence to go ahead and, you know, pursue this and also issue a warrant to arrest him. And he said, however, we would like to be able to get something that is going to be solid and that's going to stick. And so I said, well, what do you need? And he said, well, do you give us permission to record a conversation with you two on the phone? And I was okay with that. And I said, well, what kind of conversation are you needing me to have with him? Because at this moment, again, he doesn't know I've done any of this. He doesn't know. He's calling me every day. He's thinking I'm going to come back home. Like, he wants me to come home. He's saying to me, I need you to come home. I need this. Like, please come home. Please this and this and this and all this stuff. And I'm just like, give me a break. Like, give me some space to breathe. And so I knew he had went to work that night before, so I told the detective, I say, let me call and kind of wake him up to have the conversation. So I called. I was on the phone with him for like maybe 5 minutes, and then I said, oh, give me a second, I need to call you right back, like that. And that's how I was able to initiate the three-way conversation. So I asked the detective, I say, what is it that you need to know? They wanted me to ask him questions, and I wrote it all down. I had a clipboard, a notepad, and I wrote it down. And they wanted me to ask him things like basically the same stuff I was already asking him. When did you find out you were HIV positive? Do you know who gave it to you? Why you didn't tell me? Are you taking medications? You know, certain little things. And so he, you know, so I told the detective, I said, okay, I'm going to call on three-way. Once I have him on the phone, just record, you know, be recording. So, did the three-way conversation, and I asked him all the questions. Now, because he's ready for me to come home, he wants me to come home. Now, I get all the answers to these questions. Every question I asked him, he answered it. He told me, and I'm saying this with emphasis because you're going to know later on why I'm putting emphasis on this. He told me that he found out in August of 2002.
Damn.
He told me he doesn't know who gave it to him. And, you know, he answered all the questions. And so I say, you know, okay. Because what I had to do was, so this is how I had to get these questions out to him. Because, you know, he wasn't just going to regularly answer these questions. So I made it like I had to go see a psychologist. Yeah, I had to tell a little white lie. Lord have mercy. I told him, I said, listen, I got to go see a psychologist. And they have been asking me questions, and I don't know the answer to these questions. I say, this is a psychologist with the infectious disease doctors, and they trying to help me get through this new diagnosis and things, and I don't know the answers to this stuff, and you won't tell me. You keep saying you want me to come home. You want me to come home, then I need to go through this therapy. You need to help me out. So that's how I was able to get him to answer these questions, because he's wanting me to come home. He don't know I'm going to talk to him. He don't know nothing, okay? And so he answered all the questions. I clicked him off a three-way. I say, you got it?
Got him.
The detective say, oh, I got it.
Got him.
And they were able to issue a nationwide warrant for his arrest. They went to the apartment that we were staying in Spartanburg, South Carolina. They arrested him. And, of course, in true fashion, Mother Dearest bonded him out of jail. Okay, she bonded him out of jail. And even before that moment, so I'm going to take you back just a little bit. Before that moment, so between the time that I left there and the time that I went and filed the police report, I talked to his sister. So, listen, I wish I was in the car. Buckle your seatbelt. Hell, listen, strap up. Listen, because you about to go on a ride before this part ends, okay? You're going to hit some bumps and hills. I don't want you to hurt yourselves. So, I talked to his sister. Now, remember, I told you, me and his sister had a good relationship. And so, I'm talking to his sister, and she would, you know, I told her, I say, this is when I'm telling her, because she had no idea what was going on. He hadn't called her. His mama hadn't called. Now, they don't have the same mom. They had the same dad. So, nobody had talked to her. So, I called her crying one day, and I said, yo, brother, this is what's going on. This is what I was dealing with while you were here, and why I stayed in the room, and all that stuff. And she said, well, while I was there, she said, oh, this is what she said. She said, so can I ask you a question? I'm like, yeah, sure. She's like, so you really okay with the baby? Now, remember, I'm pregnant, so I'm like, baby? What baby? She was like, you know, Mary's baby. Mary. Look, I'm like, Mary, who is that? And she was like, oh my God, you don't know. He lied to me? Like, this is her reaction to me on the phone. I say, wait a minute. What's going on? She tells me that while she was there visiting for Christmas and I was gone, that they went to like Dollar Tree or somewhere. She was like, they went to the store. He bought this little stuffed animal. And he was like, I want to take you to meet someone. And she's like, not thinking nothing. She's thinking maybe it's one of his friends, co-workers, whatever. And he bought a stuffed animal. He was like, yeah, because they had a baby and I want to take them a gift. Okay. So she said they get there. He knocks on the door. They go in. She gets introduced. Hey, this is my sister. And he goes over. She says she goes over to the baby and she looks at the baby. And she said when she looked at the baby, her mouth dropped. For the simple fact, when she looked at the baby looked just like his ass. Okay? Baby looked just like him. And so he said, this is my baby. And she looked at him. And she said she didn't hesitate or nothing. Right in front of the woman. She said, does Renee know about this? Does Renee know about this? And she said with the straightest face, he said to her, she knows. And she said, is she okay with this? She from New York, so she like loud and she okay with this? And he was like, yeah, she's okay with it. She knows. And so she was under the impression this whole time that I knew about this woman and this baby that now he has brought into a situation while being married to me. Okay? So when she told me this stuff, I called him on the phone. I'm like, listen, this what your sister just told me. What? Like, I'm cussing. I'm going all out there. Like, again, I'm pregnant. And I'm all, at this point, the doctor done put me almost kind of on bed rest. And I'm doing all this stuff. And I'm just like, dude, what's going on? And I could never get a straight answer from him. I was like, you know what? At this point, y'all ought to know I'm like a private eye investigator for the most part with some things. And I'm just like, dude, you know what? I knew the lady name at this point. I say, listen, I done found the address. At this point, I found her address. I say, listen, either you're going to get in the car and drive to her house and hand her your cell phone for me to talk to her, or I'm going to get in my car, I'm going to drive to South Carolina, and I'm going to knock on her door. So he got in his car. He drove, and I stayed on the phone with him. I said, you bet not. You better not. When you get there, you better knock on the door. And I say, you better give her the phone. You better not say, Okay? So he got there. I'm on the phone the whole drive. He's to her house. She opens the door. He gives her the phone. And I said to her, I say, this is Renee. Do you know who I am? She said, yes, I know who you are. Hello? What?
I don't know. I got to hear part 3 now.
How did he give me HIV?
Part 11, the last one.
All right. So, how did he give me HIV? The intermission. Because we need one.
I don't want to. Yeah, go ahead, girl.
How did he give me HIV?
It's the last one, gang.
How did he give me HIV? Part 11. Good morning. Yeah, I made him drive to her house. I made him give her the phone when she opened the door. And when I asked her, did she know who I was? Her response was, yes. I was completely flabbergasted. Number one, because if you know who I am, then that means you know that this is a married man. And that, technically, if you know someone's married, you should not be messing with them, let alone, having a relationship with them, sleeping with them, let alone having a baby with them, okay? So I said to her, do you know that he's HIV positive and that he's giving me HIV? She said yes.
Damn.
So now at this point, I'm just like, listen, I'm ready to hop in the car. I'm ready to get to South Carolina. I'm ready to show up at whoever doorstep because I'm pissed, okay? I'm so pissed. I'm pissed. So I asked her, I say, so if you know all of this, what are you doing? Like, I'm saying this to her as a woman, to another woman. What are you doing? And so she said to me, well, he told me that if I, that I might as well stay with him because nobody's ever going to want me again. And, we're dealing with the same thing and I might as well stay with him. Guess what? He told me the same exact thing, girl. He said that to me too. Throughout the many times of him calling me, asking me to come back home, begging me to come back home, he said to me, well, we might as well stay married and be together because, the same thing. Might as well be together. Basically making it seem like he's my only option now because I have HIV just like him. And I told her, I said, well, guess what? If you stay, you are a fool. I'm not staying. I'm going. I have already left. And that was really like my one and only conversation with her. Okay. That was it. That was my one and only conversation with her. And I just hung up the phone. I was in that moment, I was already feeling embarrassed. I was already feeling disgusted. But now I'm just feeling like nothing. I'm feeling like nothing. I'm feeling like, wait a minute. I'm sitting here like, man, what's going on? Like, did I run over a black cat? Did I break a mirror? I'm like, why is all of this happening to me? Because I feel like I literally did every single thing that I saw all these people around me for all these years. I saw the communication. I saw the listening. I saw the understanding. I saw the dating. I saw, the commitments around me from other people. And I'm like, that's what I thought I was doing. That's what I thought I had. I thought that I had found my forever person. Okay. So, moving forward, all right, they issued the nationwide warrant for his arrest once the police department got everything together. And like I said, his mother bonded him out. And then once the state of South Carolina realized that, wait a minute, not necessarily the state, Spartanburg County Police Department. Once they realized, wait a minute, we have this man in our county. This is his charges. And we picked him up for it. And he lives here. They put charges on him as well. Okay. So he had charges for Florida because that's where I filed. And he had charges for South Carolina. Now, the first time he got arrested, this is where you got to buckle up again. Listen, y'all gonna need so many seatbelts. You might as well just keep your seatbelt on. Don't take it off no more after this point, okay? So the first time he got arrested was right before Mother's Day. So it was like between that February and May time period when they went and finally picked him up and arrested him. When this happened, it was on the news. It was on every news outlet in South Carolina, North Carolina, and other surrounding states. His face. Now, when they initially started reporting this, some of the news outlets were making it a point to say, oh, man infected girlfriend with HIV. And honestly, that really bothered me because I really needed people to understand this was not a boyfriend-girlfriend type of situation. This was not just someone out here sleeping with someone, not asking questions, not getting tested, not doing things. This was someone who was a wife. So I called I sent an email to one of the news stations to the lady who had wrote the article, and I said, listen, you wrote this article about me and it is not correct. So we got on the phone and we had a conversation and I explained everything to her. And she asked me, would I be okay doing a phone interview with her and it would air on the news? Now, I'm going to tell you why I chose to do this. Because in the midst of all of this happening is when I find out that there are potentially other people that he's infected with this virus.
Damn.
Not just the woman that he got pregnant, not just her. I mean, yeah, she's one of the ones that, because I know that he infected her as well. However, other people. Because remember, I told you he worked at this manufacturing company in Greer, South Carolina. He had been there for 5 years at this point. So there's many people that he came in contact with. And when this all happened to me, I told y'all I was a private investigator. At this time, we had, I believe it was Verizon. And this was when they would mail you your itemized phone calls in the mail. You get this big, thick envelope. And when you open it, it lists every phone call you ever made. So I was so angry. I was like, his sister was told me all this stuff. I'm finding out different little things, and I said, you know what? I need anybody that's been in contact with him, they need to know. So I went down the call log and I started calling all of these numbers. If I didn't know the number, I dialed it. If it was a local number, I dialed it, because he wasn't traveling to go have sex with anybody. They were right there in Spartanburg, Greenville area. And so I'm dialing these numbers. I'm talking to people and I'm saying, listen, I don't mean to call you in this manner. I say it, but do you know Gregory Martinez? Oh, you do? Okay, well, I don't know what type of relationship you've had with him. But I'm his wife, and he has knowingly infected me with HIV. And if you had sex with him, you need to go and get tested.
You probably got to.
I got people that cussed me out. I got people that hung up in my face. I got people that were in shock because that was not a part of what anyone knew to be his demeanor or something that he would do. And so I called all those numbers, and during those phone calls, I spoke with someone. And I gave them that same thing. I said, hey, this is his wife and da-da-da. And I didn't even assume anything in that initial moment. I just said, well, if you know anyone who possibly has had any type of dealings with him sexually, can you please let them know to go and get tested? And the person was like, what do you mean he like women? What you mean he gave you HIV? What you mean? Like, they was like real sassy with it and was like, what you mean? And I'm sitting here explaining to them like, listen, I'm just telling you what I know right now. That he's giving me HIV. He's been HIV positive. And he's not telling people, and he's sleeping with them. I was speaking to a man. I was speaking to a homosexual man who told me in that phone conversation that he and my ex-husband had sexual contact, and that he was even shocked that my ex-husband had any dealings with a woman. He didn't know that he even liked women.
What the fuck? No.
How did he give me HIV part 11?
Oh,
Good
what the
morning.
fuck? We can't stop.
Yeah, I made him drive
man,
to
these
her.
damn cliffhangers. Damn, I'm gonna be up all night watching this shit.
Part 12. So it was in that phone conversation that I realized this was way deeper than I probably could have ever imagined. I threw up. I remember it so vividly. I remember that phone conversation. I threw up because just a thought, it just made me throw up. And so, yeah, so that's what made me go on this news interview. When I got when I got on the phone with her, she's like, okay, we're going to record everything. We're going to air it on TV. This is when I learned the magnitude and the extent of the damage that he has caused. So I do the news interview. She's asking me questions. I'm answering the questions. And then as she ends the interview, she asks me, What do I want other people to do? Why not simply just say, listen, I need people to go and get tested. And I believe I have it pinned to my page. The actual news interview is pinned at the top of my page. I literally said, I need people, if they know they've slept with him, to please go and get checked. You know, and that's when all hell broke loose. This is why I told you to keep your seatbelts on through these parts in this story, okay? Because now my phone is blowing up. My phone is blowing up. I ain't never got that many phone calls like that. My friends that I had made while I was in South Carolina are calling my phone. Girl, what's going on? What done happened? What in the world? Because, no, of course, they seeing his face on the news. They're seeing me talking about it. And they like, girl, these people up here at this manufacturing company going, wow. They yelling and arguing and crying. Now, I don't know how much you guys know about manufacturing companies. But this one is so big that if someone gets injured on the facility while they're working, they don't call outside medics to come and do anything. They have an actual hospital and medic emergency center on the actual campus. And so that you can go there to see a doctor. You can go there to get prescriptions. You can go there like it was a full out everything. So people were there in line at the medic getting tested for HIV. People were shocked to see other people in line. Girl, what you doing in line? I don't know what you doing in line. Men and women in line to get tested. Now, not necessarily the men getting in line to get tested because they slept with him. But you guys know anything about the domino effect of things. If I sleep with someone, say that person is cheating on me and they're sleeping with someone. What if that person has a boyfriend or girlfriend that they're sleeping with? So it's like a domino effect of things where, one thing can lead to this. And so people were going to get tested once they found out maybe the person they slept with had not slept with him. That type of thing. Hundreds of people, okay? And I'm getting this as my friend is calling me on the phone. She's like, girl, I'm looking at the line right now, and this is crazy. And then she said, somebody passed out. So they have a break room area where they had a TV on. So this job has 3 shifts. You got first, second, and third shift. So as third shift is getting off in the morning, first shift is coming on. There's, they pass each other in the break rooms, going in and out to work. So his face pops up on the news. And people are just standing there staring at the TV in complete shock. Don't he work here? Don't he work in such and such shop? What? Like, people are shocked. And then my friend told me, she was like, girl, somebody passed out. The woman passed out because she knew that she had slept with him. Okay? She had slept with him. And it's crazy because when my friend told me this woman's name, I remember her name, and I remember meeting her because at one point, like before we got married in that summertime, they had like a family and friends day at Carowinds theme park in Charlotte. So I remember her from when we went to that park and I was introduced to different coworkers. Now granted, at the time this happened and his face is on the news, she had been done with him. They were not actively doing anything or in any type of relationship or anything like that. But she had a previous history with him because at one point she was his supervisor when he first started working there. So she passed out. It was just a mess. And when I talked to the sheriff's office, they told me that they were getting hundreds of phone calls from people, wanting to file charges, but they didn't know what to do because at this point, because he got arrested for me filing charges, people realized, okay, but people were afraid. People were terribly afraid because my face and my name was made public. But it wasn't made public because the police made it public or because of anything. It was really made public because I took that choice to say, listen, I need people to know that if they have slept with this man, they need to know to go get checked. I did not want anyone to find out years later that they were HIV positive when it has hidden AIDS status. Like, that was how I've always been from the very beginning. I've always worried about everybody else throughout this situation other than myself. And so they're telling me all these people are calling, but when we tell them they got to do X, Y, Z, they just either don't come in or we don't hear back from them. So a lot of people were calling because they felt that they had been criminalized by him. But nobody did anything. And then I got a phone call where they told me that there was a case where they had someone who had filed a report against him. They didn't tell me when, and I'm going to tell you guys later on how I found out the details of that situation. But someone had, went through the process of filing, but nothing else was ever done to that case. So that case was just sitting there. But because my case was moving so fast, they went ahead and just went through the process of my case. Now, because I had the recorded confession, because they did their investigations, now, anytime someone becomes diagnosed with an STD, not only is it made known to the health department, they also keep a database. This is true. I know people say, oh, do they really have a database with people with all STDs? Absolutely. There's a classified database that when you contract an STD, it is notated when you were told and when they told you. They notate that, okay, this person was informed on X amount, whatever date. So that nobody can say they weren't notified. They notated that this person was notified on this date and what the STD is. And so they knew that he had been notified. And again, like I said, from my understanding, it was August in 2002. Later on, we're going to find out that there's a different date and year. Okay, so yeah, they go through all of that, and initially he said not guilty. His thing was, well, how do I know she ain't give it to me? How I know this? Like, she just mad because she found out about marrying the baby. Like, that was his whole thing of telling his mom and other people around. If you listen to the pen link, the pen video of the best friend, you'll see. Even the best man in the wedding said, his mom and them told me that, oh, she was mad because she found out about X, Y, and Z. That's what he was telling people. Why I had him put in jail. Not telling the truth of, like, dude, you gave your wife HIV. Like, that wasn't what he was doing. And so he initially pled not guilty. However, because they had all this information, including that recorded video of him admitting that he knew he had it, and him saying he didn't tell me because he didn't want me to leave him. Like, that was his reasoning. His reasoning for not telling me was he didn't want me to leave him. Okay, yeah. And so eventually he ended up pleading guilty. And now here we are at his sentencing hearing.
Man, it's always a lesson in life. Sad that you gotta learn from other people and stuff, but shit, pay attention, man. Get tested. Be aware. Find out who you messing around with. Shit, cause motherfuckers lie. Appreciate y'all sticking around. To the next one.